Hello everyone, another couple of chess games on the road to 1500. Let's jump in. So, in this one I was at black pieces. Played the Sicilian, Najdorf variation. So pretty standard up until this point. Still in book. Still in book until this point. So I guess f4 is an idea for white here. I think I've seen that before. But rook e1 is okay. To be honest, f4 apparently is quite a bit better. I decided to castle. I should have done this move, develop my bishop. For some reason in the Sicilian I always like to get my bishop on this diagonal. So b5, bishop b7. But apparently the right idea here is to put the bishop here. And I know that in the variation where you push e5, sometimes you bring the bishop here as well. But bishop d7, like I'm really not sure about that. But anyway, I castled and decided to develop this knight to this square. Apparently it was better to develop to this square, which is kind of interesting given that it was just saying to develop the bishop there. So for some reason white always goes for this. They always go for e5, and we've seen this multiple times now. It's okay, but they're now, they've given me a slight advantage here, and it always makes sense to take that. Well, I say always, but most of the times when I've seen it, it makes sense to take it. So that's what I did. And here, I figured trading made sense. Like, let's pull the rook out into a slightly awkward square. Like, this rook is now a little bit loose, I would say. And I immediately try and attack it. But again, it's asking for this bishop d7 move, which I guess makes more sense now, because we can quickly maneuver to here. But anyway, they moved the rook back. So essentially, they've lost a bit of time, I would say. I grab a bit of space. Again, bishop d7 is being called for. They're developing as well. I should have played h6. Kick the bishop immediately, question it. They just decided to take, which was not the right idea. And we're just in quite a pleasant position here as black. We're pretty much fully developed. We've got some space on the queen side. We've got a little bit of control in the center. And, we just need to get our rooks in the game, really. So here, they went quite aggressive. They obviously saw this, mate in one threat. But g6 just completely questions that, it attacks the queen and completely defends against the threat. So that was the right idea. They decided to keep the queen in an aggressive position. And I decided to trade. I apparently should have developed this rook here. But I was like, you know what? There's not really any dark square danger for me right now, or anytime soon, in fact. So I don't mind trading this bishop. And Stockfish said it's okay. Black still has quite a big advantage here. And I've also created a weakness. And in fact won a pawn. So this is really quite good for me. So I start to try and mobilize the rooks. Now, I had the idea of swinging the rook over to the king side. And I was even looking at this move, and you can probably see why that's a really bad idea. I didn't spot the problem with it, and it was really quite bad. So I immediately went for this, thinking that I was just, causing some problems here. I was like, well, the queen only has one square now. It has to go here. And then maybe I can, you know, push this pawn, you know, cause more problems for white. And I've got more pieces bearing down towards the king. But this is just a complete blunder. And it just literally hangs the rook because of this pin. So that was a terrible mistake from me. Just a little bit of blindness there. And now I'm in trouble. So I'm basically down a full rook. They can win my queen with this tactic. So when all of this settles, I'm actually down an exchange. So it's not as bad as I initially thought it was. I was initially thinking, I'm probably going to be down a rook here, but as it turned out, they had to find another quite cool tactic to win the queen back. But that was really well played by my opponent. They spotted that. They're now completely winning. So now I'm like, well, okay, this is going to be a grind. This is going to be probably a loss. I still have some play. You know, I put my bishop here, which is a great square. Creates a threat and sort of blocks this rook from infiltrating. It's a very multi-purpose move, this. But I defend the pawn. I then create another threat. So activity, you know, when you're down, when you're losing, creating some kind of activity is generally quite important. And my opponent blocked that. I found the right move again. So like the last three moves, you know, I'm still completely losing, but you know, I'm fighting. And my opponent made a bit of an inaccuracy there. But I would say play from this point on wasn't perfect for me either. My opponent's making some mistakes. Now they're losing a lot of their advantage. And I found this move, which sort of calls into question, you know, where's the rook actually going to go? You know, it's sort of running out of squares. And they picked the wrong one. So, I don't know if you can see the tactic here, but essentially that falls into a skewer. So I'm now potentially winning back the material, and in fact the position is now slightly better for me. So just creating some activity, some threats, and forcing your opponent to react to those threats. Sometimes they make mistakes, and that's what happened here. So I was actually feeling slightly better here. I should have taken immediately, but I thought I don't have to take right now. But this is the wrong idea, because in the end of the line, essentially, if a rook comes in here, you know, it's attacking sort of two pawns at the same time, almost. So this wasn't right. And now I have to take. And yeah, this is a problem. But, you know, this is also potentially a problem. This is also potentially a problem. So the rook is probably coming in. So I decided to put my rook here. I should have moved it to g8, apparently. Which sort of makes sense, yeah. There's no way, I think, to defend this pawn. So, like I said, they found this. You know, this move that I played before wasn't right. I'm trying to maneuver. But white's getting a bit of an advantage again. It's now plus 0.52. I'm losing my pawns. Trying to activate my king. And they made a mistake here. So basically this is a completely winning position for black if I just trade. Double the pawns here and then presumably just get my king in with the threat of also marching this pawn down the board, which would require all the attention of the white king, and I guess while that's happening I would win these pawns and probably win this way. So I didn't quite feel that. I went for this instead. So that's a miss. I tried sort of poking over here a little bit, and this was wrong because, and I didn't consider this, they can just take with the rook, and that forces a trade of rooks, and you know, this is just comparing to the other position. it's much harder for my king to get in here, because when the double pawns were here, and there was a pawn here, my king can just walk in and take them all. Whereas this is covering all these infiltration squares for my king, so my king would have to go, the long way around, and, they can potentially just start pushing these pawns as well. And somehow that's just a win for white. So yeah, that was not correct. But my opponent took with the pawn and sort of gave that away. So now I give a check, trying to get my rook into the game again, activate my king more. It's a complete draw. That was wrong. I should have pushed this immediately. And here I have no choice, I think. I have to push the a pawn. Although it does say I could have taken here first. It's maybe slightly better. And here I have to take this way. So the king can only take one pawn, and that gives me some time to come up with something. So they went for this one. I decided to put the rook behind the pawn. Save the rook. And here, it's a draw. But my opponent just completely messed up here. Like, this does not stop the pawn. When I push the pawn, it is defended by the rook. Oops. And there's no way to stop it now, and they're going to lose their rook. So they had to go rook d1. That's the only way to stop the pawn. I then push, and they have to block this way, and now the rook's completely tied down, and it's just a draw. Like, they're going to win this pawn, but I'm probably going to win these pawns. So yeah, it's just a draw. But anyway, unfortunately for my opponent, they just played the wrong move here. I don't think that was a mouse slip. It could have been, I guess, but I think they just made a mistake, and I win the rook. And after a long, hard-fought battle where I was down an exchange, I managed to pick up the win. My opponent played on here, so you'll get the honour of seeing my dubious king and rook endgame technique, which wasn't perfect by any means, but I sort of got the job done in the end. Slowly forced the king back, and eventually forced him into mate. So yeah, that was not the best game at all for me. Like, the opening was okay, I think. I got into a good position in the middle game. Just going back to the review. So you can see here by the graph, I got an advantage for sure. I was I don't know what it is. It's not telling me. Minus 2.54. So yeah, I was winning. Then I blundered, managed to come back, and then it was a little bit back and forth. We both had blunders and mistakes. These spikes here, and then it was a draw, and then my opponent blundered, and I managed to get the win. So, not the best. Credit to my opponent. My opponent was 1147. Elma, I don't know how to pronounce that at all. Elmaragi from Egypt. 77.5% accuracy, not bad. And I had 82.4, 1450 versus 1800 game rating. 7 mistakes for my opponent, 1 miss. 1 mistake for me, 3 misses, 1 blunder. I mean, to be honest, there wasn't a lot in that. It could have gone either way. I feel like I've got quite a good fighting spirit, I would say, and that sometimes comes through for me. And I somehow find good moves when I need to find them, save games. And I know also how to make my opponent or put my opponent under a little bit of pressure. Even if I'm down material, I can create stuff, create threats and opportunities for my opponent to go wrong, and that seemed to work in this one. But, you know, it was lucky. I could have easily lost it. So that was that one. Glad I got a win. That would have been a tough loss. This next one here. Let's jump in to the analysis again. So in this one I had the white pieces and went for my usual. They went for this, which I don't see very often, and I'm not sure if it's correct to play the London against this. Stockfish seems to think it isn't. Like it actually says that's an inaccuracy, and that I have to play e4. But you know, I don't really know how to play e4. I mean, I could play it, I'm sure, but you know, I don't know any of the theory or opening traps and things that can go wrong and what the plan is. So I just decided to stick with the London, and it's okay. It's not losing or anything. It's an even position, but it's clearly not the best. So just went with the normal setup. My opponent's developing. I apparently should have immediately played b4. Sorry, h4. That's interesting. Because normally when I play h4, it's deemed to be some sort of inaccuracy. So in this position, this is best. And this is sort of, the advantage is swinging slightly back to white now. And I guess we're just planning some sort of attack on the king side very quickly. You know, we've got some good piece development over here. And potentially not castling also allows this rook into the game as well. So yeah, I can see how that is an idea. So I guess I went more conservative. I decided to castle. And so pretty much even again. More developing. And my opponent came in with the knight, which is not the best move. Apparently the best move is here. I guess questioning the bishop, and in fact, forcing the trade of knight for bishop if they want that. Which I guess is also another idea behind h4 as well. But here, this just, you know, they've wasted two moves. So that's not good for them. This is not the right idea. I should have immediately played e4. I was looking at e4, and I think I realized I could play it, but I was also starting to see some tactical ideas down this way. If I can eliminate this knight. So just a bit of a slow build up. My opponent made another inaccuracy. They should have immediately tried to strike in the center with c5. And this is a big difference. This is a difference of, you know, half a pawn almost between those two moves. So I played e4 eventually. They eventually went for this, and you know, maybe we're playing some of these moves slightly too late. But I can now save the bishop at least, which is the right idea. And then they went for f4. And they're starting to get into a bit of trouble here. You know, their king is getting a little bit exposed, and I've got a lot of pieces aiming down that way. The best move for them was g6, which, you know, just blunts this idea completely. It's still good for white, even if they had played that. So I, of course, took, and now my rook's open as well. This is looking really good for me. That's also a free pawn. And they're now scrambling to try and defend. And I spotted here a bit of a tactic to win material. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but this move basically traps the black knight. And the best move they didn't find, but it's apparently just move the king like this. So it's a little bit double-edged this. I have won a knight, but it's sort of opening my king a little bit as well. And our queen's becoming active. Um, however, we are sort of trading a few more pieces. So I saw here, you know, my knight is hit twice, but this bishop is also hanging, and I was like, well, I'm up a knight, I'm just going to trade. And also there's the idea potentially of doubling rooks. Their queen is in a little bit of a scary position, but there's not really any threats right now. I decided to throw in this check. The best move was rook e3. Just question the queen, and I guess get my rook protected and safe at the same time. Yeah. But I sort of had dreams of some sort of attack here. Like, let's just check the king, see if we can create something. And I went for this, which is just horrendous. Um, so, I'm not sure what I was really thinking here. I'm trying to think back. I was just trying to get my queen active or get a queen trade. But this is just, you know, this fails. So what they should have done, they should have actually traded. And like d5, yeah. This move, wow. I did not see this. So this move here threatens the rook and the bishop. And neither one of those pieces can defend the other. So it's a very cool tactic that if my opponent had found that, it would have still been okay for me. Like, it's not game over, but, you know, I'm still actually slightly better. But they unfortunately just didn't see it. I didn't see it. I thought this was just good for me. But they avoided the trade. They wanted to keep the queen on the board. And they're sort of creating a pin on my rook now. But it's kind of double-edged, you know. So I threatened checkmate. They went for this. And again, I just was like, let's just trade queens. They avoided it again. I now get all my pieces into the game. And they're sort of scrambling. Attack the knight. Unleash the triple battery, which is going to be pretty devastating in a move or two. And decided to trade because this is just game over. The queen coming in. Oh, here I was trying to calculate the win. This is not best, it's okay, but it would have been better to check this way. And I think if the king ever goes back, it's forced mate somehow. So the king has to come forward. And then we very slowly just do this move to defend. Because there is a threat here from black. So I instead went for this and decided to sacrifice my bishop, which was not the right idea. I sort of thought, surely, you know, if I can distract this rook, there must be a mate here for me somehow, like with my rook and my queen. But there just isn't. So somehow, I guess the rook can come and block here. Yeah. And this is just not mate. Like, maybe it's perpetual mate, perpetual check, I don't know. Probably is. Yeah. So it looks like it's just perpetual in a draw. But I was convinced that there must be a checkmate there. So you need to be careful with that, guys. Like, you know, I almost, you know, drew the game when I had a clear win. However, my opponent, unfortunately blundered mate in 2 by going this way. So the idea was they had to go back, which seems a bit counterintuitive, but that's the only way to survive for them. So I didn't spot the mate in 2, but they made another mistake, and then I I found the mate in one. So another tough game, like, and a game that I could have lost very, very easily. So I mean, a lot of the players are really quite a challenge for me now. Like most games, there's very few games I would say recently that have been just complete, easy wins. I'm having to work for it, which is good, which is great. It's good fun. Um, but my progress is maybe slowing down a little bit. I'm now sitting just 3 points higher than I was in the last video because I had a loss as well, which I'm not covering because it's the most awful game I've ever played, and it's embarrassing. But I don't know if you guys are interested in seeing me play terribly. I could maybe do something on that. But yeah, anyway, that's it for today, guys. So we look at the review for that. Wasn't good. 82-75 accuracy. I was winning for most of it, but kind of almost gave away a draw a couple of times. Yeah. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.